Some years ago, Pamela Anderson came out as Hep C positive, and there was a bit of a lull then. It was like, oh, it was okay, not that bad to have Hep C because Pamela Anderson had it, but she sort of drifted off again now.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that.
Do you think Hep C will be eliminated by 2030?
I hope so, but there are numerous things that need to happen, I think, to achieve that.
What it was like when the Hep C epidemic started?
I think it started and was here before I actually realised it myself.
I think before anybody realised it.
Yeah, it snuck up on us. Like, people knew about Hep B. Yeah, and...
But it was, Hep B was odd. Not everybody had Hep B, so it was kind of a hit and a miss kind of a thing, and you just sort of, it was just something that people had. There, I don't ever remember there being information from like community, you know, like organisations or anything like that. There wasn't, none of that existed back then.
No. It was a long time ago when it was so, I remember the doctor when I first got diagnosed with hepatitis, like, I said, oh, what is it? You know? And yeah, he just was in disgust that I didn't know, because we knew about HIV and we knew that was the one to nobody wanted HIV.
That was, that was the one that everybody knew about, the public knew about, and everybody was terrified of it. They'd done all their scary bowling Grim Reaper ads, and but Hep C was an anomaly, you know. I
actually got diagnosed non-A, non-B. Like, they hadn't actually discovered Hep C yet, so...
Way in the beginning.
Yeah. I look good for my age, don't I? But yeah, no, it was, and it was scary, because you didn't know if you were going to die from it, and there was no vaccination, and I mean, it still isn't, but yeah, it was scary for me. Well, it was for me anyway. Yeah.
I wasn't scared when I was diagnosed, but by then, I think everybody I knew had already had it.
Yeah, right.
So it was, but I can remember all of a sudden, like you're talking about sort of the Hep C epidemic happening. I remember a couple people had Hep B, but then all of a sudden sort of late 90s, I guess.
Yeah.
All of a sudden everybody had Hep C.
Yeah.
Which was bizarre.
Yeah.
And when you guys found out about it, I know you said it was scary, but what did you do? Were you still informing people about it, or?
Well, back when I got it, dead set, like the doctor said to me, oh, don't you know what it is? You know, it's hepatitis, you fool. Like, obviously he felt nice to people who use drugs, but, and he really made me feel like a piece of shit, to be honest. Like, and then the health department actually came and visited my home because it was they had to report it to the health department that I had it. And it just so happened I was living with my boyfriend's parents, so the health department rocked up at the door with the clipboard and wanted to look at the cleanliness of the bathroom and all this kind of stuff.
Are you serious? So they did the whole contact tracing kind of...
Yeah, and it was horrible.
Did they out you to the other members of the family and stuff?
Like everyone there. Like, we're here because of Jane's diagnosis, and, you know, it was just no confidentiality. It was just like, you're kidding me, aren't you? I just wanted to dig a hole and crawl in and die, and I didn't know if I was contagious or what I could do and what I couldn't do. Like,
that's right. So you're feeling like you're going to spread it to the other people in the house.
Absolutely.
And how did they treat you?
Well, yeah, I had my own cup and plate and all that kind of stuff. And you know, like, I'd hear his mum after I'd had a shower. She'd go in and wash the shower out.
Wow.
And, you know, I mean.
So they told you had a hepatitis, but how much information did they give you about it? Like how
none whatsoever. Just that you could die from it, and I got it from sharing needles.
Yeah.
And like, I've never shared a needle in my life, never used anyone else's needle
this is the
ever.
thing.
And it was like, so what's happening here, you know?
Like, even with the stigma of having Hep C, I kind of came to early on I came to a sort of a comfortable, you know, ness, I guess, and a shamelessness about my Hep C, and I kind of saw it as more of a conversation starter, I guess, for anybody who wanted to ask, because I was tired of being looked at as a junkie that was stupid and was useless and didn't do it, and all I wanted to do in life was take drugs. It was like, no, drugs is something I do, but I am a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just to open that sort of door to have that conversation. So around Hep C sort of kind of aided that, I guess, because it was sort of something that went along with being an injecting drug user.
And what is it like now?
It's a lot better now. I mean, because everyone knows I inject. No, because it's a lot better now. I mean, it's still, doing drugs is illegal and it's a criminalised marketplace, and for as long as that's there, it's still going to have that air of stigma or secrecy or whatever about
and ignorance surrounding everything.
Yeah,
because
ignorance.
you can't educate people en masse because of the criminality element,
Yeah. So it's a lot better now, and also because there's support services and there's drug user organisations and there's peer programs.
There's drug users that work in the sector.
That have jobs. Yeah,
people that have actually been where we are, to talk to. We get to talk to other people.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's a lot more accepted, at least in my social group and stuff now.
So, despite the fact that hepatitis C is much more, I don't want to say accepted than it used to be, but there's less stigma around hepatitis C than what there was in the early 90s, for example. There is still significant stigma around people who use and inject drugs, and also people who have hepatitis C that remains a barrier to engaging in the services that people need to look after their health.
So I know you spoke about stigma, but where do you think the emphasis has to be put on for people who use drugs or people who inject drugs?
Well, look, I think we need to look at where stigma comes from, and where the stigma comes from for hepatitis C is kind of in this space where drugs are illicit and illegal, and because drugs are illicit and illegal, there's stigmatisation of drug use, and in particular injecting drug use, and that then rolls on to the stigma attached to people who have contracted hepatitis C via injecting drug use. So we need to look at addressing stigma to be able to I guess promote and encourage people to engage in treatment. It does go back to drug law reform, so the fact that drugs are illegal and they're criminalised as opposed to being treated as a health issue is a huge barrier to people wanting to engage in treatment. So, if you're an injecting drug user and you think that you might have hepatitis C, there is still fear attached to going to your GP and talking about hepatitis C, because drug use is criminalised, and by extension some people might believe that hepatitis C kind of fits into that space, which is a real problem.
Elimination will happen, but I don't think, like anything else, it's going to happen to anybody's time limit. And I think that word of mouth is probably the most effective sort of.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, that's right. Like, so people that have had it, they've done it, and they've told their mates about it, and that takes a while. It takes a while to get around, and for all the ears to hear it and to actually hear it, not just to listen to it.
Yeah.
Most people will end up treated. I reckon that I could bet on that most people with Hep C will end up, if they have access to it, getting treated, like in sort of first world we're talking, where they've got free access to the Hep C treatments. Like, look at the mess in the States where they have to, they've got all this. Why can't people get treatment?
They're screaming for treatment.
Exactly.
Oh, you're not sick enough yet to go on treatment. You've got to wait till your liver's almost completely, totally rooted before we'll let you go on treatment. And why then? It's way too late.
And
anyway.
I think we've got the opposite problem here, where we've got everybody's being, it's here, take it. You can type it as many times as you want. People are they just sort of take it for granted that it will be there forever, and they can keep taking it.
It won't.
And I think that's a little bit of a misnomer that needs sort of clearing up.
Our government won't be doing, I mean, we've changed government recently, who knows, they might even,
Yeah.
it's not going to be around forever, the free treatment.
Look, I guess concluding all of this, as we work towards the elimination of hepatitis C, optimistically by 2030, there needs to be an enhanced public policy response to drug-related harms. The National Drug Strategy talks about the 3 pillars of harm minimisation. Those pillars are supply reduction, demand reduction and harm reduction. Harm reduction doesn't get a good enough go. We know that harm reduction is evidence-based. We know that harm reduction results in less hepatitis C and HIV transmissions. The jig is up. That's been proven for the last 30 years. But when we look at the resourcing that sits around harm reduction, comparatively to supply reduction and demand reduction, so we talk about supply reduction, which is policing, demand reduction, which is drug and alcohol treatment, and harm reduction, which is about enhancing education practices, needle syringe programs, all of those things that acknowledge that drug use is part of the fabric of our society, and we look at strategies, I guess, to reduce drug-related harms. That particular pillar of the 3 pillars that make up harm minimisation in the National Drug Strategies is significantly underfunded comparative to the two other pillars in that space. The community of people who use drugs, like they have in the last 40 years, will continue playing their part, as they currently do, in reducing the spread of hepatitis C in the community, and we'll all be working together to work towards elimination, hopefully by 2030.
It's associated with users, and, you know, I think users are good people. I know some shit users too, but you know what I mean.
Exactly.
We're just people.
But they're just people.
We're just people.
Yeah.
Good and bad in all.
That's right.
You know? Yeah. I know some shit people with Hep C. And some good people with Hep C.
Yeah. Well, not anymore, because they've been treated.
Yeah.